In our first session, we sought to create situations that would allow students to see the effects being mindful of one's body has on their mental state and success. Knowing that a tense body and stress often go hand in hand, we decided to start there. The muscles between your head, neck, and shoulders are sometimes referred to as a tension triangle. These muscles, like others, can react to psychological pressure by tensing up. We introduced these participants to a task that would naturally cause the students to experience tightening in their tension triangle, and then added psychological stress by creating a tight deadline for a difficult task. In order to be successful in this task, the students would have to consciously avoid any added tension. As you watch the group work, you'll see a few things. First, one subgroup automatically tenses up, overcorrects, and behave as though they are in crisis, while the other part of the group maintains steady breathing, loose shoulders, and calm, soothing voices. Throughout this activity, you'll hear the relaxed group enjoying themselves and see them smiling. You'll see the other group looking much more serious and intense. Secondly, the relaxed group is consistently able to lower their end of the helium stick, while the tense group continues to move it further from their goal. Finally, there are times when both groups' attitudes start to affect the other groups. Eventually, the group who had a better handle on their intention, attention, and attitude towards a task had a stronger impact on the other, and the entire group was able to achieve what we call attunement or harmony, and they completed the task. All in all, when the students were mindful of their body, they were able to create a more enjoyable environment, were able to achieve success, and ultimately felt better. In our previous activity, we showed the students that awareness of their body position and body's reaction to stress can impact success and well-being. During this activity, we asked them to apply what they learned. The activity was set up in a manner that the group had little chance of successfully completing the task at hand. Success was measured by how well they honed in on their bodies. This was meant to be a challenge, and it certainly played out as one. You see students standing in cramped, uncomfortable positions for long periods of time. Each time they started to tense up or rush, more and more mistakes were made, and morale started to drop. When the group was finally able to calm down and were better oriented to the task, they were patient, their bodies were relaxed, their breathing was controlled, and they were focused on their comfort as opposed to completing the task in time, or the difficulty level. They actually made progress. The impact of body awareness on success and well-being is illustrated so well when one student makes a mistake and gets separated from the group. She gets emotional, becomes tense, and rushes herself in order to catch up with the group. Overall, in both activities, the students felt a stronger sense of achievement, performed better at the tasks at hand, and were more relaxed the more they were able to remain mindful of their bodies. In our second session, we intend to transition from a focus on physical mindfulness to that of mental. In order to do that, we started this session with a short meditation walk, which is an active form of meditation that allows people to focus their awareness on the world around them. For our location, we chose a fairly secluded nature trail for two reasons. One, it was quiet and separated from the chaos of campus. And two, studies have shown that interacting with nature on a regular basis has a positive impact on one's psychological well-being. We asked students to do their best to stay in the exact moment they were in, be aware of their breath, posture, and the nature they were surrounded by. For the most part, they needed to make a strong, conscious effort to leave the outside world at the entrance of the trail. For some, it was quite uncomfortable, especially when they passed their peers. Once individuals were able to truly participate in walking meditation, it was clear their demeanors had changed. Even in our short discussion, the group felt more relaxed and focused on what we were doing. I lead activities followed by processing on a regular basis for groups of all populations. So I have to say, throughout this process, I wasn't nitpicking each discussion, because I know people have a tendency to say what they think others want them to say. Instead, what struck me was the response from students outside of the study. Students who weren't involved in this study, but were roommates or friends with the participants, would come up to me and comment on how many positive changes they saw in their friends, and how they wished they could have had the opportunity to participate. Students remarked that participants seemed relaxed, happier, and generally had a more positive outlook after attending sessions. While I believe our reflections and activities are meaningful evidence, I put even more weight in the observations those who see these participants in their everyday lives brought to my attention. Because this study wasn't about making positive changes that would be limited to the sessions, it was about making an impact on their everyday lives.
The importance of self-care is crucial for the social work professional. The work that we do often carries us deep into our clients' suffering and despair. The risk of burnout or secondary trauma is ever present for all mental health professionals. We prepare our social work students to be mindful of this risk and teach them that self-care is important. and vital to their own well-being and stress relief at both a personal and professional level. Students often struggle with this concept, often asking, well, what does self-care look like, and why is this important for me? In finding ways in which to help students grasp this idea, we looked at the concept of mindfulness practice as method or approach to foster this concept of self-care. Thus, this project came about, and we decided our discussions and teaching of mindfulness should encompass the physical, social, emotional, and spiritual aspects of self-care. When thinking about self-care, mindfulness training has been shown to benefit social work and other mental health professionals because of its focus on inner well-being, self-compassion, and self-awareness. These are excellent and essential skills to possess when you work in a high-stress environment. And mindfulness training has been shown to cultivate the attitudinal dimensions of empathy, compassion, and responsiveness to client needs. Students were first introduced to the concept of mindfulness through physical and somatic experiences, as Molly described earlier. This segued into my discussions with the students regarding the social, emotional, or relational aspects of mindfulness awareness and its tie to self-care. Our initial session began with my challenging the students to think about how they can become their highest version and to think and feel about their relationships, not only with others, but to explore their relationship with self. Relationship with self is a tricky and unusual concept at first for students to grasp. Sitting together, students were asked to relax and breathe deeply for a few moments. They were then asked to reflect upon a time or incident in which they felt some strong emotion, such as anger, fear, stress, and then to explore by viewing the scenario again in a non-threatening, safe space. To explore whether they reacted defensively or whether they responded, which would be a non-judgmental way of dealing with situations or problems. The differences between reacting to a problem or responding is that the latter lends itself to a more thoughtful, mindful approach to problem solving. Students seem surprised upon reflection at how most seem to react out of anger, fear, or judgment to the problem or situation. Students were led through a relaxation exercise where they first were asked where they felt tension or stress in their bodies. Students noted that they were aware of physical stress in their necks, heads, shoulders, or midsections. Students were then led in a mindful breathing and full bodily relaxation exercise. Following this exercise, students reflected that they became more self-aware of where they tended to carry their stress in their bodies when they were reacting to stress, and how the stress and reaction caused them to feel emotionally. Being mindful about how to respond to a stressor was key to this exercise. Students were then asked, once again, to reflect on their relationships. This exchange helped students to immerse themselves in the concepts of compassion and kindness, love and fear in relationships, letting go, and forgiveness. In the final exercise, students were asked again to think about their most important relationship, that being relationship with self. Most often, we take for granted that when we talk about relationship health, most of us forget how to care and honor the relationship with self first and foremost. This is key to self-care. Mindfulness practice teaches that before we can genuinely and fully give our care, compassion, and love to others, that we must first embrace our own sense of self-worth, self-compassion, and self-love. This is truly honoring ourselves. With continued mindfulness practice, the heightened sense of self-awareness that students have gained here may more positively impact their relationships with self, others, and their environments.
My piece in this project involves spirituality and connecting with oneself. Intention, attention, and attitude play a large role in how we see ourselves as a spiritual being. In the third session, I asked the students to think about spirituality from the perspective of their inner self. In order for them to feel the full impact of the session, they needed to open up to the experiences that they would have over the hour. Talking to them about participating with an open mind and an open heart was very important in setting the tone for the exercise. We began by going outside to burn sage. This is a process called smudging. A small ball of sage was burned in a shell. The students stood in a circle while I walked around the inside of it, pushing the smoke toward them. I explained to the students that smudging is a practice that people do to take away the negative energy present, a cleansing of sort. Sometimes people have a hard day, and they take that energy home or back to their dorm rooms with them. The hope with smudging was to help them relax and open to the experience. Once back inside, I asked each student to take a mat and arrange themselves in a circle while sitting on the mats. Once seated, I facilitated a brief discussion about finding their inner self. I asked each student to try and locate where it was physically in their bodies. While they were thinking, I talked to them about where mine lies and why I believe it lies in that particular spot. I gave the students some time to think, feel, and locate theirs. This would involve paying attention to their own being. Once they found theirs, we went around the circle and shared. From there, we moved to a brief discussion about connection. This would involve setting intent. They would need to set the intent to make the connection. Bringing inner self and connection together allows people to open to what comes next, whether they are thoughts or feelings. We then learn to own them. In order to connect to inner self via their intention, I asked the students to close their eyes, sit quietly, and listen to music. They were also asked to concentrate on their breathing. Throughout the exercise, you could see the students relaxing and finding their rhythm with the connection. There were a couple of students who looked slightly uncomfortable, however, they stayed with the experience. During the process of the exercise, several students stated that they were able to connect and that this was a relaxing experience. Others mentioned having some difficulty connecting. This was explained by one student as hard because she is more cerebral, a thinker. She did mention that this was something she wanted to continue to learn about. Her attitude was positive, as it was for all of the rest of the participants. The closing exercise to this session was to go back outside after the process piece and burn sweetgrass. This is another smudging exercise. I explained that burning sweetgrass is an exercise to keep or pull in all of the good energy. Students had just participated in an activity that asked them to open up, set intention, and make a connection. It was important that they hold on to all of the good that came throughout that process. For the final exercise, we made intention ties. Students were given pieces of red fabric cut into squares, 5 of them to be exact. They were also given a section of string and small pieces of cedar. I explained to the students that they would be putting their intention into each of the ties. I also explained the significance of the red fabric. The red represents things such as moving forward, success, connection, positivity, and life. I offered them a demonstration before they began. It was interesting watching the students hold the cedar and fabric while they set their intention. Some took longer than others, but it was clear that they were engaged and thoughtful about their process. The intention ties are something that they can put in their pocket, hang in their car, or put under a pillow. It is a reminder about the intention and connection as well as their capability to do both. This is an important aspect of self-care. Overall, I thought each session was beneficial to the students. They engaged fully and came to every session with an open mind and an open heart. Their willingness was incredible. Even in times of discomfort, each person stayed with the process so they could learn more about how they can use their body, mind, and spirit to find balance. It was an excellent experience with 2 great facilitators and a group of amazing students.
Did the workshops motivate me to think differently about how I practice self-care? I would definitely say yes, because to me, whenever we talked about self-care, whether that was in a classroom setting or just in any setting, I thought of it as just relaxing on my couch and vegging out and watching TV. But after these workshops, it just means so much more to me, like even just sitting and thinking.
Most recently, I think I've started thinking about mindfulness as self-care just because our coursework and everything that we've been doing this year has really been intense, and it's made me think about how I can take care of myself, especially with graduating and starting practicum and starting to have the intense caseload. How am I going to be able to be myself and present so I can help my clients the best I can?
I think this mindfulness in social work is really important, especially we work with a lot of different people, and it's important that we have to use that with ourselves and our clients.
I chose to participate because I wanted to gain knowledge of 3 different perspectives of mindfulness.
I think that it's changed me because now I'm able to take a step back from situations and take a breath and realize that it's something within my control to be able to either feel a certain way about it or move past it.
I think before the workshops, I was aware that mindfulness could be used as self-care, but I wasn't really sure how because I mostly thought of mindfulness as being mindful when I'm interacting with another person and really being present with what they're telling me and what they're saying to me. But through these workshops, I have learned that mindfulness can really be used as self-care, and now I somewhat think of it more in that way. And I have really started using mindfulness as a way to take care of myself, and hopefully will continue doing that in the future.
I will definitely continue to practice mindfulness. After going through these sessions and learning more about it, I realized more how it can impact my everyday life, and I think that it can hugely affect me personally and professionally.
I think by participating in these workshops, I was able to kind of understand myself as a person a lot better than I did before the workshops. It really made me think about like how I process things and how I work through things that are going on and how I stay in the moment when there's a lot of things going on.